All right, now we're going to talk about congruent angle relationships in a transversal. So first of all, one thing you need to know is that all corresponding sides are congruent. Remember, we talked about how the angles, how the measurements going from here to here are translations. So that means that all corresponding sides are congruent. So 1 and 5 are going to be corresponding, so they'd be the same measure. 3 and 7 are the same side, are corresponding, so they'd be the same measure. 8 and 4 are corresponding, they'd be the same measure. 2 and 6 are corresponding, so they'd be the same measure. Vertical and corresponding vertical sides are congruent. So that means 1 and 4, they are vertical, 5 and 8 are vertical, 7 and 6 are vertical, 3 and 2 are vertical, okay? Plus, if I were saying, okay, which angles are congruent to 1, well, any angle that is vertical to 5 is also going to be congruent to angle 1. Okay, so let's go through. Don't worry about that, but here's what we're going to say. Because I know the definition of those congruent angles, I can say what are the angles in this image that are congruent to angle 7. Well, let's look here. From angle 7, I've got angle 6 is vertical, so that's congruent. Angle 3 is corresponding, so that's congruent. And because angle 2 is vertical to angle 3, that's also going to be congruent to angle 7. It's pretty easy to find the missing measure of these because, much like those vertical angles, we're seeing that if it is congruent to it, if it lays in a certain place, then it's going to be an equal measure. So if angle 7 equals 75 degrees, we can easily figure out the measurement of angle 3 because we're saying it's congruent. So it means that angle 3 will be that same measure. It will also equal 75 degrees. We can also solve for x using one-step equations. So here I know that this angle equals 60, and I know that 10x is going to be my angle that is congruent to it. I'm going to still follow the same step. Again, with vertical angles or congruent angles, it's pretty easy. I don't have to do much solving for that. I know that my missing measure is going to be 60 degrees since the other measure that I know is 60 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the measure as a solution to the equation. So I end up with 10x is equal to 60. Then I solve for x. I do 60 divided by 10, and I end up with x equals 6. We can also do the same for two-step. So if I solve for x here, I know that this angle equals 60, and my congruent angle is 3x plus 15. So to find the missing measure, again, we're going to go ahead and we're saying because I know that this is 60 and I know this is congruent to it, I know this is going to be 60 also. Then we're going to plug in the measure as a solution to the equation. So I end up with 10x equals 60. I think I just did this one and I forgot to change it. 3x minus 15, so I'll change this as we're going through. So with 3x minus 15, that was my bad here. I'm going to go through to the next slide. Let's close out my format so that we can see this a little bit better. That was my bad. I forgot that I had to change the equation there, so I'm going to go ahead and just take this out. And we're going to go ahead and duplicate that slide, and then I'll actually just solve it. So again, let's start this over. We're going to say that we're going to follow the same steps every time. So we're going to go through and we're going to say step 1 is find the missing measure. Okay, in this case, my missing measure is going to be 60. I'm making this a little smaller so that we can see it. My missing measure is going to be 60. Since my angles are congruent. And I did angels instead of angles. It's going to happen. Okay, step 2, plug in as solution. So here's what I'm doing. I am saying that I have got 3x plus 15 equals 60. Next, I'm going to go ahead and my last step is solve. So I'll go through and I will say, okay, well, I've got 3x is going to equal 60 minus 15. Okay, 3x is going to equal 45. And then I'm going to end up with x equals 45 divided by 3, and x is going to equal 15. All right, that is your solution. Go ahead and start on the activity after this.